irritation, frustration, and annoyance.
And annoyance, for everyone, I want you to know, is Jenny's middle name.
And I thought it was irritation.
Good point, Molly. It is both.
I'll take
Nor-
both. I'll take both.
Jenny irritated and annoyed.
Yeah.
Fury, outrage, wrath.
So that we are not doing another horror episode with Marcus. Sorry, girls.
Yeah.
But what word can be terrifying to everybody and horrific is the word anger. And that is what we are going to talk about today on Oh Gross. Welcome back to Oh Gross, where we talk about all the things that people think are taboo and shouldn't be in society. And anger is one of the things,
Yes.
right? Anger is actually an emotion, and it's an emotion that we should all feel okay to talk about, to feel, right?
Yes.
And to recognize. But we don't. We have all these labels like wrath. I can't do it as good as Jenny. I can't.
That's pretty good.
There's all this negative connotation to the word. And I was just thinking before we started today that the first time I saw anger sort of displayed in a way that any generation could understand, laugh at, and sort of embrace was the movie Inside Out.
Yes.
I was
right?
just thinking of
Yes.
that movie. I love it.
Such a good
Yeah.
example.
Right? Because the steam's coming out his ears. He's upset. But then you realize within the movie that you need the anger, right? Or it doesn't work. You can't suppress it. You can't get rid of it. You have to recognize it. And then it's part of all the team, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
I think it's really important for us to talk about it today. And I'm super excited for us to just kind of explore the word anger and why there is such stigma around it. Why as a society we are taught to sort of push it down or walk away from it, and how it is just gotten a bad rap.
Right.
Yes. It's okay to be angry, y'all.
It's okay to be angry. It's not okay to be other things that are wrapped in the anger, but the actual emotion of anger is a healthy thing, and we are going to explore that today.
Let's not be angry about anger.
Okay, young Yoda.
Oh, gross. The drama's about to end, 'cause gross. Stop asking for a friend. Taboos. Icky's what we do. Just science. Yeah, it's not so weird. Your gross out journey starts right here on Oh Gross.
I'm super excited today. Joining us to explore the word anger and the emotion of being angry is Anita Avidian. She was my anger management facilitator teacher. No, I'm joking. I did not go through anger management, but I did go through training.
Training to help with Jenny on this podcast.
Hey.
Hey.
But I am a trained facilitator. I went through her certification training to be trained and certified in this space, and she's amazing. And what I found during the course of this class and training was that even if you're not going to be doing something in the professional space where you need to have a certification to actually facilitate anger management groups, you learn so much about yourself, and you learn how to communicate the word anger, and you learn how other people are communicating and when they're feeling angry, and it just improves you as a human being living in this society
Yes.
on how to
Yes.
deal with anger and aggression. So I'm super excited to have her join our conversation, because the whole goal of today's episode, right, is to normalize
Being angry.
being angry. Yes, exactly, because we're going to normalize it. Hello, welcome, Anita.
Hi,
Welcome.
thank you.
Hi,
We
Anita.
are so excited to have you today, everyone. We are joined by Anita Avidian, who is a licensed marriage and family therapist, but also an expert who specializes in anger management. And I was lucky enough to take her training and course on anger management facilitation. So we're super excited to have you join us today.
Thank you so much, Kara. Thank you for having me here.
So we're going to jump right into it because there's so much to talk about when it comes to the word anger and angry. And I think we just want to start with that. Why are these misconceptions around the word angry? And why does it have such a negative connotation?
Sure. I think oftentimes people will say that anger will then lead into violence and danger. And sure, it can, but most of the time it's really not the case. And so we want to separate what anger is, which is a very normal emotion, a feeling. And it does mask, it acts as a secondary emotion. So it does mask our more vulnerable feelings that we experience, such as sadness, hurt, shame. And so it's a lot easier for some folks to express anger just as a protective mechanism and or culturally it's more acceptable. So typically it just gets that bad rep because people think of it as angry person is a violent person, which
Yeah, like
really
a bad human if you're angry.
yeah.
And I think just to explain in a very basic way, can we talk a little bit about your primary emotion and a secondary emotion and what that kind of means so people can understand?
Absolutely. So initially we experience, like, let's say you are there's someone who's tailgating you, right?
Oh yeah.
Initially, even though we go straight into, ugh, how annoying, don't they know differently, right? We're getting frustrated, right? But if you really break it down, what is that about? We're a little bit worried. We're on the road. We're trying to keep things safe, especially we have kids in the car or we have loved ones in the car. So typically there can be either fear around,
Fear.
is this person going to hit me? Or is this person going to get into road rage with me, right? We don't know who's around us these days. But that fear is such a split second, right? We're not sitting with that because if I'm sitting with fear, what are we going to do? Not much. And so anger kicks in with this energy that it gives us to do something about it. So it's going to help us move, whether we're moving towards it, hopefully not, and or trying to escape from this individual who's so driving so closely to us. And so anger is going to give us that motivation to do something about it. And what we're going to discuss here, obviously, is also how to navigate through anger so that you're using it where it will be helpful and useful rather than it being so damaging to us. And so typically what I would do, I'm sure everyone's a little bit different. I just move on to the right lane, let them pass, and then go on,
Right.
But if I have ego, well, we all have ego, but if my ego is kicking it and I'm going to be like, I'm going to teach them a lesson, right? And that's all going to come from unhealthy anger, of course. And who am I really going to teach a lesson to? So, but that's what I mean. It's that split second of fear and anger kicks in and takes over. And that's what we're accustomed to. But anger can help us out of that situation. And anger can possibly drive us to doing something a little bit more silly. So, or not helpful.
So it's basically almost like, when they say listen to your body and the signs that your body is giving you,
Yeah.
anger is one of that. It's a
Oh,
signal for us.
absolutely. Anger is going to work as a signal. Even think about, like, again, we'll come back to the car. I know I talk a lot about road rage, but we come back to the
And listen, we all understand it, right, girls?
Yes, yes.
Driving in general is terrifying.
yeah. Yeah. Like it's a signal, right? So whether you want to think of it as, a flashlight helping you focus on, okay, this is a signal. Let me look at what is really happening here. The car, it's going to signal, okay, you need gas, go refuel. It is literally a feeling that comes up where we want to treat it as it's signaling that something is not right. For women, a lot of us women, we have like the stronger sense of intuition. We sense, is he cheating on me? What's going on? Something's off, right? And all of a sudden we make up things in our head and then possibly get upset at our partners. But when we feel something is off, right, the healthy approach, of course, is to go and have this conversation, whether with our partners, with our friends, with our colleagues. And that communication is normally going to help us build intimate relations and more trust, more safety. And that's using our anger towards something healthier. But let's say I haven't done my work and or I have my ego taking its course here. I'm going to jump to conclusions, tell my partner, hey, you're cheating on me, I'm going to break up with you, right? So it's just jumping to conclusions, being upset because, I don't know, they forgot to get me a birthday gift or they came home late, whatever reasons I come up with. And so obviously the initial part is the fear, is he going to leave me? Am I not emotionally safe in this relationship? And the anger kind of kicks in to kind of take charge and say, hey, let's do something. So it's going to signal to us, but let's use that to help us. It's going to protect us. Let's use that to help us. It's going to give us information, like I mentioned with the flashlight. Let's look into that and explore, what is my anger really about here? Is it that I'm scared? Is it that I'm feeling shame about something? Is it that I got hurt about something and I didn't know how to communicate that differently? And learning to navigate through this properly and using it to our benefit to improve relationships.
And I love that because it's so simple. It's so hard, but it's so simple to think like okay, if I talk to my partner and say, hey, I feel unsafe and I'm actually getting so much anxiety that I don't know if I'm managing it. I'm wondering if you're being faithful. I'm wondering if you're holding back something. So that becomes an open discussion that maybe you guys aren't talking enough. And that's making you feel insecure as opposed to you have definitely done this and I'm going to, throw
Right.
your clothes out the window
Right.
and burn the bag of memories.
There you have
I
it.
feel like you're giving us permission to feel that emotion too, which
Yes,
is
yeah.
freeing
Exactly.
because there's so much stigma attached to that word because we all feel it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think with women, we should talk about it a little bit too, because it's funny. Like, there's a difference between being angry and just expressing yourself. And I think sometimes it gets labeled as angry when it comes to women. I mean, I've been in a work situation with, let's just say, dozens of men in a room,
Same.
and television can be intense. And a male can yell something because he wants the attention to it. And then when a woman does it, the words were spoken, stop being hysterical. And
Right.
I'm like, wait a minute.
Right.
Right.
So true. Hmm.
Right, that is very common. Like,
Yeah.
so we have this fear of, well, if I speak up or I present something in a louder manner or a more aggressive manner, that it's going to be labeled as anger.
Yeah. And I can't tell you, like, because I work a lot with executives and companies, human resources will refer someone to me. It's quite fascinating when a woman is in an executive role, there is a certain expectation that the moment they express something or get a little frustrated, I mean, like a little frustrated, some tone, right? We're not talking about anything major, by the way.
Right.
All of a sudden, reports to human resources, they're required to do anger management. And the men get away with, well, let's not say, but they just can get away with a lot. So when I have a male executive being referred to me, they have a long line of reports of what they've done, like seriously wrong at the workplace, right? And when the female executive is getting referred to me, I'm just in shock that this is what's getting referred to me for the work. So that's just to speak to, like, our culture is still similar in that fashion. Perhaps it was worse 20 years ago, 10 years ago. So I'm glad some information is out there where it's helping us shape our culture at the workplace, but we still have a long way to go.
Yeah. And where do you think that really stems from? Like, if we were to go back in time and sort of unpack this, where does this come from?
Well, so much as how much, like, how we're taught to feel angry, right? Think about the children. You have a boy who gets angry, and if the boy is going to express, like, let's say they're going to cry, right? What do we know that back then, at least, that I'm hoping now it's kind of changing, but 20 years ago, at least, it would be don't cry, boys don't cry,
Yeah.
toughen up, right?
Right. Yeah.
And
Right.
so, what is the boy learning at that point?
To hold it in, yeah.
To hold it in.
Hold it in, don't express emotion, don't cry, it's weakness. Whereas the girl, they cry and they're going to be comforted. Girl shows anger, the mom or dad's going to be, girls don't do that. That's not appropriate for right. So
Right.
what they're taught from back in their childhood years is for girls to express vulnerability more rather than anger, and for the guys, expressing anger is normal. Boys are boys, they're more active, like we kind of excuse that behavior. And so later in the years that kind of continues. So some of this, we know this, it's societal, right? It's how society
Mhm.
shapes this culture and this acceptance and or non-acceptance, and just societal as well, how we express anger. You're going to see, like, rage differ sometimes in different countries and how people express themselves. Carrie, I know you had gone through my training, and we also know what the purpose of anger is, to restore interpersonal harmony. So we see this in certain countries where it's more okay to express anger and frustration. Like, if you think about Italy, people just kind of throw it out there, right?
Yeah. I lived there. Yeah.
Right. What are you doing? Right?
It's all out on the table
I don't care.
for the hand gestures, the words, everything. Yeah.
You don't see it kind of lead into this major rage episode. It's blurted out. I'm not saying this is the way to go, by the way, but I'm just saying there's something to be said about cultures who express in the moment.
Yeah.
And so, whereas when you're taught, don't speak up, don't say this, don't hurt people, we just need to learn how to communicate that, still express it, but appropriately, mindfully, like, get
Right.
it out, don't hold it in, right? Because that's not
Yeah.
healthy either. We see where that leads to. And so, just culturally, I think there's a lot that plays a role when you're taught to express things in the moment, or not necessarily right in the moment if you don't know how to do it properly, but to at least wait and then express what's going on and not holding it in. Not to suppress is really a big concept.
Because it bottles up and then it
Mhm.
explodes. Or it comes out as passive aggression, right? Right?
Yep, you got it. You got it.
Right.
Right, passive aggressive, we have our tone just leaking out.
Yeah.
We're not sure if this individual is really upset with us or not. We can pick up on it, but the words don't match the behavior, and it's difficult. It just feels very toxic and uncertain in that environment.
And I think we also have to talk about why we can't receive the emotion of anger, right? Because it's not just expressing our feelings in the moment. It's also, as a society, we've sort of made that taboo. Like if somebody else is on the other end of the conversation is saying, hey, this really bothered me,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
This makes me feel angry.
yeah.
It's like, wow,
Mhm.
whoa.
We act
You just said
offended.
that? Yeah,
We act
offended.
offended.
Yeah,
Oh, you got it, Jen. Yeah, that's a good word. We act offended. And even that is, think about like what's been modeled for us growing up in our own household, right? How was anger received? Like one of my favorite questions as a therapist, I ask individuals and couples, how was anger modeled for you in your household? How were
right.
arguments modeled for you in your household? I know you guys work a lot with moms in this episode too. So if you think about it, like I think we kind of entered into this culture of don't argue in front of the children.
Right.
And so kids have been growing up with not knowing how to argue. So now all of a sudden they're avoiding conflict because they're not sure.
Not in my
how to-
house, Anita, unfortunately. Not in my house. No, my kids are learning the
love it.
mastering
I-
the argument, the art of argument, and also, getting their point across.
But look, there's obviously there's the extreme. How
Yeah.
is argument being held? So what I like the idea of is modeling discourse, but being able to resolve it in a
Yes.
respectful and healthy manner. I think it's truly important for kids to be able to see mom or parent or guardians having emotions, whether they're crying, how they talk it through, learning how to talk it through. It's okay. It's okay to be uncomfortable sometimes. It's okay to express like what's bothering you. So, we see that playing a big role. And of course, what they're learning in school and with their peers and who they're hanging out with as friends, because that obviously influences us as well. So we're constantly taking a look at what are we doing in our culture, as society that's helping us, that's hurting us. We go from one end of the pendulum to the next, and then we're trying to find this middle ground of what is probably going to be better.
Well, I love that idea too, because conflict resolution is the key to everything, right? Understanding it's what they try to teach in schools. And as a parent, so many times we put the pressure of like, oh no, I fought in front of my kids.
Yeah.
But the truth is, did you resolve it? Is what I'm hearing.
love
Did you
that.
resolve it in front of your children, right?
Yep.
If you resolved it in front of your children, wow, that's a great teaching lesson that shows that the aggression isn't getting out of hand, that
Yep.
you're figuring out how to express real emotion, and that anger is a part of all of us, but we have to get to the root of
Yep.
it. So I think that's really great advice to like, don't hide. Because so many times an argument starts with parents and it's loud. I'm sure you guys can relate, right? And then you go into
Yep.
another room and you resolve it and they don't see the resolution. And
Right.
Right. That's a good point.
it's like the magic door is open. The magic door is open and now mom and dad aren't mad anymore. I mean, that doesn't help anybody.
No.
There's not some magic door in life you disappear into and then you come out and all of a sudden you're not mad. I
Yeah.
think that's really smart and
That's
it
great
makes a lot of
advice.
sense.
Yeah. I didn't think of that because not being able to model how we resolve it in a healthy way, because I'm guilty of that. We'll go in another room and have an argument. And we might start in front of the kids, but I never thought of that. It's right. I'm not showing them and teaching them by example how to talk to each other in a healthy way, even if we disagree, and resolve it. So that's a lot of food for thought. I appreciate that.
And I do want to just mention, just in case the audience may take it a different way, obviously we don't want children to feel the intensity of the
Right.
unpredictability, and we don't want them to get scared. And
Right.
it's just literally modeling emotions are healthy. It's okay. Disagreements will happen. It's learning how to work it through, right? I think
Right.
that's the key factor in this, because I can't tell you how many clients I've had where they have never seen their parents argue. They
Right.
have no idea what argument looks like, a healthy argument. They didn't even see them like argue yelling in a bad way, just nothing.
Mhm.
Right.
So now when they come across an argument, it's what do I do with this? Like, I'm never going to get through this. Yeah.
Yeah, it would give it a whole other layer of anxiety because
Yeah.
what does this mean? Why
Yeah.
is someone do that? Can we talk a little bit about, because I thought this was fascinating, like anger versus aggression,
Yep. Hmm.
right? Because I think that's an important piece of all
Very
this.
much so. So earlier we are talking about how anger is the emotion. So I'm going to feel angry, for example. Typically, Dr. Mark Milstein talks about this. There's two components of what comes together when we're getting upset. There is something that is in the way of my goal, right? So let's say I'm trying to
Mm.
get to work by 8 a.m. and there's a lot of traffic. I'm going to potentially get angry because it's impeding in my approach to my goal. And the other is a violation of my expectation. So I have expectations that, let's say, everyone's going to drive, I don't know, at the same speed limit, or they're going to signal as they go left or right. And when they don't, I'm going to one notch up of probably feeling a little frustrated and then more frustrated. So when the two occur, especially together, it makes it worse, right? So this is like our formula for when we're getting angry. That's the emotion. For me, it's again information of why am I upset? What's my underlying feeling? What expectations got violated here? What impeded in the way of my goal? Aggression is literally the behavior. It's the action. When you are acting aggressively, like when you're aggressive, I'm going to either see it, hear it. It's going to come out through texting. It's going to come out through the voice, maybe even stonewalling, right? Ignoring. Like, so you literally see aggression. So I could be angry and you will have no idea I'm angry, but you will see or hear my aggression, right? So what I like to say, even though we call it anger management when we're working with clients, it's really not anger we're trying to manage. It really is not. We just literally we use the term because that's the popular word. Like someone's going to Google anger management, not aggression management. So, right, we just go along with it. But it's really aggression management. It's when I feel angry, what can I do differently? How do I navigate through that so that it leads to a constructive action? So that's where like it gets a bad rap because some people it leads into a fight or cursing at someone or breaking something. But so many of us have learned I can navigate through this. Something is up, the signal. Let me talk about this with my friend. And next thing you know, we recover through it. We feel closer that we were able to get through that conflict. And that's the beauty of anger. But aggression is I'm going to put the person down. I'm going to have a tone. I'm going to be seething. Maybe my body language is just like nodding no. And I may be breaking something on the road. I'm going to tailgate someone and follow them until we exit. I don't know, right? I mean, I would never, but
Or talk poorly about somebody instead of dealing with what happened. I mean,
oh, so sorry, there's someone honking right now as we speak out. But tell me that
aggression. It's an
Aggression.
example. It's perfect. That's aggression.
yeah, right? It's like all the honking in LA. I'm like, repeat that though, Kara, if you don't mind.
I was saying, or even when we say something awful about somebody,
Yeah.
aggression can come out in a gossip form,
Absolutely.
right?
And
You know?
and we know women are more likely to
Yeah.
probably take that role, I think. Men
Yeah.
are usually they one up each other, but the women, it's you're not part of our group. And one way we like to exclude or feel closer to one another, unfortunately, is by talking negatively about someone else and not realizing how that's actually affecting our relationship and or our image of ourselves too, right? If someone is speaking negatively of their own friend to me, what am I going to make out of that? So
Right.
but that's our way of coping, right? We bond with someone else and we make sure we're feeling validated with our feelings. And we don't realize sometimes what we're creating out of that, right? That's not necessarily positive.
And I go to the mom groups. We all know the mom chats. Like, literally the mom chats. I mean, there's endless conversation between Molly and Jenny and I with my mom chat drama.
Yes.
But it's funny because I'm not the only one. I talk to other moms. It's like, what is with these people? They just create this conflict
Yeah.
in a chat situation because we are no longer all having tea together or sitting around having coffee because we have time now that we've dropped the kids off. Instead, we're in a chat group where if somebody gets mad, you see immediately it's not expressing anger. It goes right to aggression. And then it's like a chain reaction, which I think is in the digital age, we have to talk about that. Like now we have this immediacy to our aggression that we didn't have before. It takes a lot of, I'm going to say it, balls to get aggressive to somebody in face to face, right?
Yes.
Right.
You have to have that. I'm so mad. I don't care. It's a certain personality. It's harder for a lot of people. But in a chat group, right?
Keyboard warrior.
Yeah. Keyboard warriors come out in a chat group, which is really interesting to me. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Of course. So we know that there's like this digital disinhibition where if I'm face to face, there's no boundaries. You are seeing my facial reaction. I'm seeing your facial response to what I'm saying. And so we may feel shame or embarrassed in person, right? Or I may feel more uncomfortable because I'm going to be uncomfortable with your reaction, your facial reaction to me with what I'm sharing. There's something to be said. If let's just say it's even a phone call, already I can't see you, I can hear you, but if you think about our sensory, I'm no longer able to see your response, your facial reaction. So we're taking away that judgment if someone, let's say, rolls their eyes or, I don't know, cringes as they're speaking to you. Now, remove the voice. So now we're removing what we're able to see and what we're able to hear. Let me back up a little bit. So we have what's called mirror neurons. I know you guys are into science. So Jenny, you're probably very well mirror neurons. And so with mirror neurons, we realize there's an aspect of our motor cortex that if I'm with you and I see that you're in pain, my brain will almost mimic a similar pain. I will literally feel like empathy comes from here, where we recognize empathy could be hardwired, or an aspect of it is. So when I can feel pain because I see you're feeling pain, this is an aspect of our mirror neuron. So when you take away the visual sensory, we're now reducing that empathy component, right? That we're able to get to. Now, when you are texting, one, we can misread the tone of the text based on what I may be thinking, how the mood I'm in for that day, right? All these play kind of contributing factors to this. And two, if you're not using emojis, if someone's presenting it differently, we can misread that. But two, we're not seeing the physical and the auditory tone to things. So it becomes easier to be mean to people, especially ones we know we're not going to come like face to face with, right?
Right.
So we kind of like hide behind this. I don't know, especially if no one knows what my full name is, how to find me, I could get more mean. Think about
Right. Social media groups. Yep.
social media. Think about you get a phone call, telemarketing, right? I feel bad for these people. Like they probably get yelled at, abused.
Jenny.
I'm so bad with it. I am bad with
But
it.
that's it. Like we almost treat them like they're not human beings, right? Like they're
Right.
not another individual who's trying to make a living, and this is a job they found. None of them I don't think really love what they do. But these poor guys,
Sure.
they're telemarketing, and we just want to let them know, like, stop calling me. How many times do I tell you to stop calling? So, but you guys get the gist of that. It's easier to be mean to people we're not face to face with. But would we do that if we're at the store and someone comes up to us, trying to sell us something? No way. We're gonna
Probably
be
not. I mean,
pleasant.
some people I know in my mom chat group might, but not most not.
Right, we
Yeah.
would never go up
Yeah.
to someone in person and go, "Hello,"
Jenny, you have a new challenge. No, I'm kidding. No. So, but it's like that when we are in face to face. Like there's something to be said where all of a sudden the brain's going to function way of, okay, I need to be kinder, and there's a consequence to this if I become more mean. Whereas in digital media, there's less consequences, right? We get
Yeah.
away with making these negative comments
Right.
until like who knows, at some point some people may start getting stalked or in trouble for making negative. I don't know, right? We've seen it all.
Well, the rabbit hole starts, and also I think the key thing to pull out of this is you lose empathy. You lose that trigger that we physically get that makes us have empathy for other people. And when you're looking at constantly screens or you're in a digital world, like you don't have that, and that's a really scary place when you think about it. And that totally makes sense, because sometimes I'm always like, someone will post something in like a Facebook group, and I know you've seen this too, Jenny and Molly. Then all of a sudden they get attacked by like 32 women over something that was simple as like, hey, I heard about this job.
Right.
If anyone's looking for this, this kind of work. And then someone will be like, how dare they pay that? Why would you post this? And like, it's like, oh my gosh, people are looking for work, and they just, and there's like, it's like scary.
Right.
Everyone just like is ready to be aggressive
Yeah.
and displace their aggression.
And it gets glorified. The mean
And
stuff
it gets glorified by
sometimes,
other people. Yeah.
Mhm.
And then other people jump in like, you're right. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And like, I get so much anxiety. I look at it, I'm like, oh my God, all this is scaring me.
Yeah.
And I can't look.
It's online bullying happening.
It's really,
Yeah,
it totally
yeah.
freaks me out, But it makes sense because what I never thought about that you said was interesting is on top of that, like how our body signals empathy.
Yeah.
I knew that we don't have it
Yeah.
because obviously we're taking the hearing and the seeing way, but that we physically get a signal when we're with somebody in a room
Yeah.
to have empathy. And I think that's something for all moms and dads to think about too, right? Because our kids are using screens so much or whatever. Like we have a job to make sure that they're being put in situations where that they're feeling that physically so they understand what that feels like.
Yeah,
And I
you're
think it's more
right.
difficult,
They don't
right?
learn to
I mean,
read a room when they're younger anymore as much
yeah,
as we used to, or understand body language and facial expressions. You're right.
exactly.
Right.
Exactly. I think that really for me that just like a big light bulb just went off like, well, wow, it's a step
Mhm.
further. It's not just no screen time. It's what situations am I doing for them as a parent,
Right.
right? And putting them in that they're learning this skill and they're understanding what that feels like in their body. Because we talk a lot about in my house, why are you feeling angry? Or what are you trying to communicate? Like I'm good at that, but I'm never thinking about am I putting them in positions that they're understanding the signal in their body of empathy,
Mhm.
you know? I think that's a really great takeaway.
And they're not gonna necessarily know how to respond. Like, they literally look at a parent and see how do they respond to the scenario, right? And then they start modeling a similar way, which I'm sure you guys already know. Like, if you see a child hitting someone else, oftentimes, like, where do they learn that from? It
I
doesn't mean
know.
it's the parents or guardian. It could be an older sibling or a friend, but they're learning how to respond that way, right?
Right.
And so, but same thing with empathy. They're gonna learn, even though an aspect of it is hardwired, especially in person, but they're going to learn how mom or dad is responding in an empathetic fashion, and they're going to repeat that. So it's so much of it is learned, and your brain's not going to be fully developed until you're age 25, sometimes 26, and then bring in all the drug use and alcohol use, which kind of delays that as well. But
Right.
it's
Oh, yeah.
we have a
And
lot looking
screen
at.
use now and screen
Screen
use.
Screen
use,
use.
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
That frontal cortex, yeah. Do you think that it's harder now for young adults to be able to regulate anger in general because of all these things and be able to really express emotion? Because Molly and I actually have a lot of young employees, and I've noticed the last several years we're having to relearn
Yeah,
communication, effective communication with them. Because
yeah.
I feel like, because I'll think, "Hey, that frontal cortex isn't there yet. What can
Right,
I
right,
do, to
right.
help them?" And maybe I'm just old and don't remember it, but I kind of feel like all the screens and all of the hiding
Well,
in the
Jenny, you're
computers make it
definitely
worse.
old.
I
I
am
mean,
old.
you're
I am
So
old.
not, so
No,
not.
you're not.
But I think there's
I'm
a lot
kidding.
of truth in what you're sharing. So I'm not a child specialist, but I will say in the past pre-screen time, which I remember, I don't know who here remembers, but pre-screen
Mhm.
time,
Mhm.
there,
Yeah.
we got accustomed
Answering
to,
machines, babe.
right,
I
yeah, yeah,
remember
yeah,
answering
fax
machines.
machines, answer machines,
Beepers.
right? Beepers, yeah.
Beepers.
But back then, as kids, we would be accustomed to getting bored. It was okay to not be involved, having to
Yeah.
do something, not to be
Yes.
distracted.
Boredom.
Right? Boredom is
Yeah.
great for kids, right? Learn to just sit in the moment and have nothing to do and be able to be mindful. And
Yes.
we've taken away from that. And now there's so much distraction. And even with screen time, I'm sure you guys already know the science behind. Again, this is my
Mhm.
friend who does all this child development, but there's a lot of science about the type of screen time one should have,
Mhm.
how slow,
Yes.
the slow movement, nothing fast paced, nothing too action based, because all that impacts how we're going to be thinking. So,
And regulating our emotions.
and to regulate.
Yeah, we've been working on a documentary for years in
Yeah.
this space, and one of the big things too is that, and I want to say this to our listeners, not everything is all bad.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's the approach of what we're doing. I mean,
Mhm.
the fact that OG Mario Brothers game has been proven to grow the brain
Mhm.
because you have to remember that you're jumping in and out, like or Zelda.
Zelda, yes, I was
Like
gonna say.
yeah, Zelda's another one because
Yeah.
it's working the brain as a
Yeah.
muscle. So there are tools you can use on screen, but like you said, like all these action packed,
Mhm.
I need to have something every second, every millisecond, something has to happen
Yeah.
affects it. I also think as an adult, listen, I try to recognize my triggers because like I do all the things, I've taken all the mindful based classes, I've done your training, I've done I'm, I got my, health coaching, so I've done all the things.
Yeah.
And I can stay at this like pretty zen, level. And then once that switch goes off, like everybody, right?
We all have it.
But I can I can get
Mhm.
triggered. And I mean, I notice, I don't know, I think a lot of adults this way, like even our texting, if we have that ringer on that alert,
Yep. Notifications.
right?
Mhm.
Those notifications can
Yeah.
trigger. right?
Mhm.
They create you feel it inside. It creates either anxiety, it can create anger, right? Because you're being interrupted, like you said, what your plan was something different, and now this notification's going off. So we have to be aware of those things too digitally, that we're constantly getting bombarded with things that are going to potentially trigger us to have our secondary emotion,
Well, and
right?
isn't there a fine line between frustration and anger and being aggressive?
Yeah.
Isn't there a fine line between those three that we really kind of need to be more mindful about? Because I know for me, I'll get frustrated
Mhm.
and it might turn into anger or whatever, but how do we manage that?
Molly, you bring up a great point. So one key takeaway I want people to be able to remember this piece is we're not trying to control anger, right? We're trying to manage aggressive behavior. What you're describing is this onset of, like, think of it as a scale of anger, right? How angry am I on a scale of 1 to 10? So I feel like frustration is in the lower end somewhere, right? Something just happened and where I got frustrated, but nothing too intense, nothing that's really taken over. So typically, if something's occurring around a 2 or 3, we ignore it. Once we get to like a 4 or 5, highly, highly recommend for us to do something about it, meaning having a conversation, journaling, taking a walk, stopping what we're doing some deep breathing, like anything that helps us de escalate. Because what happens is we will normally ignore that too. And then something else will happen. And let's say we're now at a 7 or an 8.
Mhm.
At that point, when another notification comes in, another phone call
Mhm.
comes in, now you're going to hear tone. You're going to possibly see me get a little bit more short or stressed or have a reaction or yell or right. I mean, I don't think I want to say I don't yell, but
Me neither. I do not yell.
I don't yell. Tone. I've been caught to have tone, but yell. No. No, but what I'm trying to say is like the onset. So frustration to me is almost the onset of like what level we're getting at when we start becoming more upset. So anger, I could be really angry even at a 10, but typically in an 8 to 10, you're going to hear me, you're going to possibly see me be aggressive, right? This is where feel like I can't manage my anger. And the reality is we can, right? We were able to manage it when it got to a 3 or a 4 or a 5 or a 6. Once we're at a 7 or 8, it's a lot harder to de-escalate at that point and deal with it properly. So we always want to teach folks, like you said, that when you're feeling frustrated, allow that to be your signal of just checking in with your body. Do what works for you to just cope and or give yourself a few minutes and understand what's happening and just not to ignore it and let it get the best of you later in that stage.
That makes a lot of sense. I think being okay and comfortable
Mhm.
with the fact that you're recognizing it too, that it's not a bad thing, that you're
Yeah.
not, it's not a signal that you're wrong. It's not a signal that you're a bad person.
Mhm.
It's like, oh, this is really bothering me.
Mhm.
What's the next move I'm going to make? And how am I going to de escalate that for myself to communicate better?
Yep.
Which I think just to touch on
Yeah.
it so people understand what true rage is.
Yeah.
Can you explain that?
Yes. So with rage and there's a lot of confusion. Like we even call it road rage, and oftentimes it's really not rage. But
Is it road aggression?
so aggression, when someone is aggressive, I know that's really what it literally should be. So if you think about aggression, so anger we said is the feeling, right? We don't see it, but we can feel it, right? Aggression is going to be that action, how someone's acting, yelling, breaking something, cutting someone off in the freeway. That's the action we're going to start seeing. Rage, we try to describe it as the brain goes offline. When do we see someone raging? So, rage to me typically is not an intentional thing, whereas aggression, the person intends to be
Mm,
aggressive. Even though someone coming to me with aggression issues will say, I have no control over it. By the time they're done with the course, they realize where they could have done things differently and where they do have control over it. Someone who rages, typically I'm going to see someone under the influence of alcohol or drugs or certain medications too, by the way. The withdrawal of those, right? Even nicotine withdrawal. I want to say my biggest ragers when it comes to substance abuse is withdrawing from marijuana, right? Oftentimes people use weed just to relax and sleep. And so we see more of a withdrawal because, again, it's affecting us that we may not realize. And if someone is, for example, in a manic episode from like if they have bipolar and they're in a manic episode, we may see them enter into rage. If someone has brain injury, think about your
right.
athletes. your football players, they've had a lot of impact to the brain. Your boxers, soccer players who, have to hit the ball with their head. So any impact on head is
Trauma.
potentially going to be brain injury, and or someone who's served active duty in military and had brain injury through that. Typically, these are the folks I'm going to see get into rage.
Got it.
It's not your everyday person who, like our everyday person, we're all going to get upset, totally fine. We're all going to feel angry, totally fine. What I do with it, we're all going to have our worst moments. We could be the best, nicest person in the world. We will have a moment where we just kind of, what we think of it as, we lose it, but that's not really losing it. We can still control it, and or we can learn how to prevent us from acting that way if it's happening frequently. But rage typically is something a little bit more different than what we see as someone who's being aggressive.
If someone says they saw red or they blacked out because they were so angry, are they real? Is that rage or is that really just an expression of extreme aggression?
I'm going to ask more questions about it, because I'm going to ask, were they drinking? Were they using? Were they withdrawing?
Oh,
Is there medical issues? What is happening? So the more information I have, the better I can understand what's really happening and be able to teach accordingly and help someone accordingly. Typically, people who are really raging are going to be either incarcerated and or in a lockdown facility, because someone who's raging is really possibly hurting people around them.
right.
And
Ugh.
we'll work a lot with court order people. The judge is not going to order someone anger management as an option if they're very violent and or have done a
And
lot
you
of
can't
damage.
control the violence. I
Mhm.
mean, I think the
Mhm.
key
Yeah,
here is that even if you're getting really aggressive, there's an element of you can control it.
correct.
Mhm.
Yes.
Even if people use that term of like I saw red and I can't believe what I said, it's because they probably got to 8 or
Yeah.
9 in this scale of steps,
Yeah.
and now their aggression is at a 10,
Yeah.
but they had control at 3 or 4, and if they had
Correct.
just taken the moment to say, "What is really upsetting me right now?"
Correct. And we're not taught to do that. We're taught to like hustle, bustle, get through all these emails, phone calls, work harder, do more, right? We're not
Right.
taught to just take a break. It's okay, right? So, but yes, so we can control that. One question I always like to ask, and not to say it gets me the best response, but when someone tells me they had no control over it, I like to ask, if there was law enforcement right there and then as that action was happening, would you have still done it? If you knew you were going to go to prison for this, would you have still done it?
It's a good question. Yeah.
And that's when they'll say, actually, I probably would not have. I'm like, okay, that's
Yeah.
what tells
Well, you
me
have
that.
control over it. Yeah,
Yeah.
because you would have done it
Yeah.
differently, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Puts it in perspective.
Yeah, so that kinda is a little, it doesn't always help, but it usually helps me better understand where the individual.
No, that totally makes sense
Mhm.
because I think so often when we think that we don't have control over something and this is just a part of who we are, we write it off. Either we explain it away like, well, that's just me, and people make jokes about it,
Right.
or you write it off in a way that you're like, you're self-shaming internally,
Yeah.
right? You're blaming yourself and you're feeling shame around it. I can't fix this, but we do have control, just like
Yeah.
we have control of anything else. Which, it's a big thing because there are so many triggers in our life that we don't have control over,
Oh,
right?
Right.
a lot.
Right? So what are the steps you can do, simple things that you tell people if tomorrow I'm going to wake up and I'm going to say, "You know what? I really want to improve my relationship with anger."
Absolutely. I like the question too. So one of my main ones, and keeping an anger log. So I know with our program, we have a series of questions we have people answer that helps them detect, like, what is this? What happened? What did I want to get out of my action? Right. And did I get what I wanted? And typically it's no. Right. If I'm yelling because I want to be heard, well, was I heard? No. So it's recognizing, it's literally reflecting on a recent situation where you got upset and you didn't like how you handled it, or how you handled it turned, worse. And reflecting upon that. What thoughts did I have that preceded my action? Like, what were my beliefs around this situation? Because so much of it is how we're interpreting and or misinterpreting what's really happening. And based on that misinterpretation, we're reacting. And we're also going to take a look at, how did I act, right? And how can I act in the future that would be more to my liking, that would be better. And what we're doing is we're training our left prefrontal cortex, our orbitofrontal cortex, to have the upper hand of our amygdala. So the
Mhm.
amygdala is the almond-shaped mass where the eyes and the ears meet. That's running the show. That's our emotional component that is if you want to call it our first brain. We have like 3 brains in our brain, right? But the human brain is the logic brain. It's going to kick in and manage. So we want to train our left prefrontal cortex to speed up the connection between that. So we're speeding up the neural pathways so that we have logic over the emotional reaction. So keeping an anger log helps speed up that connection. And other ways we get to do this is talking to someone, preferably on a weekly basis, a professional preferably, and or reading up on anger and or watching or listening to podcasts around anger. Anything that helps us stay in tune and updated with us trying to be more mindful throughout our days, right? So I think that's a key component of what we could be doing.
But I think that's a great point. Step number 1 is don't be afraid to talk about anger.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to listen to things that are talking about anger. Don't be afraid to read about anger as an emotion and what that means. And don't be afraid to write down when you get angry.
Yeah.
I mean, that goes back to why is there such a taboo around this word? We would all be less angry if we talked about anger.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You're on it, Carrie, you're on it, right?
You're so right.
We're going to talk through it. It's okay. You know, we get scared about talking about it. And again, part of it is because what's underlying anger is going to be a more vulnerable emotion that we're not necessarily feeling safe when we talk about it with people because we worry about being judged, right? Or if someone knows how angry I get, maybe they're going to judge me and I'm going to feel shame. And right.
You
So
know, I do think too, it's good to tell people, and I love the journaling. What little angry, I don't want to say angry, that's the wrong word. What exercises can we do, not to, besides journaling, to really exercise our brain in a way that we can really handle and accept the anger emotion?
good. So one, I think we were talking about the scale earlier. Pay attention to your body cues. So if my heart rate is starting to speed up,
Mm.
if even my thoughts sound darker or, like, oh, they did that on purpose, like that kind of a thought, let that remind me I'm in anger mode. My heart speeding, let me just check in, like, what is this really about? Is this anxiety? Am I upset about something, right? Like literally checking in with ourselves as these things occur. You guys probably already know about the flushed face or extremity. So it's our body preparing us to fight or flight. So again, we just check in. What's going on? I'm noticing my voice is changing. I'm noticing, I don't know,
I'm
I'm
trembling.
trembling, right? So check in with yourself, especially if you have a tendency to be aggressive or people have reported that you're an angry person. Don't ignore that. If people are noticing it, then it's at a place where it's important for us to check in with ourselves. When you check in, then you do something about it. So that little coping thing can be literally a few minutes of a breathing exercise. And when we are breathing, I just want to share this. Make sure you exhale longer than you're inhaling. So breathing out more is the focus because that slows down the heart rate and it helps us relax more. So it's going to activate the parasympathetic nervous system when we are focusing more on exhaling. So coming back to doing something about it. Next, be aware of your triggers, right? So if I know that I have issues being on the road and that's what's going to upset me, before I drive, let's say I sit in my car, maybe I go through a list of affirmations. For example, I'm going to be sharing the road with other people who may not follow the same rules I do or who may have different approaches to driving. And so just giving ourselves those reminders and to be more flexible with our expectations, which is very different from lowering your expectation. That's not what we're talking about, but to set yourself up for success. So be aware of your
And
triggers.
also empathy. I mean, I love this for the
Yeah.
workplace. Like if you're having
Yeah.
frustrations at work, to tell yourself, I'm going to be communicating with people who may not communicate on the same level as me.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
Yes.
that just
Yes.
saying that out loud changes. Like now you switch the gears. Now you're like, okay, I'm having empathy towards the fact they communicate differently than me, and
That's
I'm going to be
great.
approaching
Yeah.
that.
Being understanding of that. And then we know, like, for example, we talked about the brain not being fully developed, especially the prefrontal cortex, not till 25. Well, we know our road ragers is what we call ages 16 to 19 male, right?
Oh,
So
wow.
if
Yeah.
yeah,
Wow.
so if I'm driving and I have to remind myself, not everyone has a fully developed brain driving on the road that I'm sharing with, right?
Right.
And
It's
so
a kid we're mad
it's a
at.
kid, right? It's a kid.
Yeah.
Come
Yeah.
on, Anita, get it together. No, but
Brian
yeah.
thinks they're all playing video games. He's convinced that they think they're in a video game. And then when
Yeah, that makes
it's the
sense.
video games. They think they're in a video
Yeah,
game with the
Brett
car.
says
Did you see that?
Brett says the same thing
Yeah,
because he
it's like,
drives every day for a living. So
yeah. He's like, they're all in a video
They're all
game. It's what Brian
on
says.
video games, or you see that. You listen, a lot of moms they're gonna be texting and driving, right? You're gonna see
Yep.
that.
Mhm.
Anyway, there's gonna be a lot of triggers. Know your triggers and tell yourself whatever affirmations you can that kind of help you better understand the individual, or at least helps you build tolerance for you, so that you don't upset yourself. Like you're only hurting yourself by doing that, right?
You
Such
know,
a
and
good
that's such a good
point.
point.
Yes.
Tolerance.
Yes.
Yes.
We just have to all tolerate it. You don't have to love it. You don't have to say, this is the best thing in the world, that they don't understand me or that they drive like this. It's just, I'm going to tolerate it at a level that doesn't hurt me
Yep.
and my physical health. I love that. And I also think what we're saying but not saying is slow down.
Yeah.
Which has been a lot of our episodes lately.
Yes.
Slow down, because I have seen for myself and other people in these text groups and or chat groups, you're not reading it. You're not slowing down. You're moving. You're doing 17 things at once. You're picking up tones that aren't even there sometimes.
Right.
Same with driving. Somebody you weren't paying attention and somebody you think cut you off.
Yep.
You don't even know if they cut you off because you weren't paying attention,
Well
right?
said.
You just know that
Mhm.
it just disrupted your flow. So I think slowing down is a big part of this too.
Yeah. With that slowing down, Carrie, I just want to add. I know earlier I was talking about how in some countries they'll express things right away. There's this thing we call responding versus reacting. So responding is I'm still in my proper mindset to be able to respond properly. So it's not an emotion-based response, and I shouldn't say necessarily emotion, but intense emotion-based response. So reacting, we're not even thinking through it. It's like the amygdala running the show. Responding, maybe I took a few minutes, a few hours, or I waited and I slept on it. And the next day I go in, I tell this individual, what you said yesterday was hurtful, and I truly appreciate our friendship and hope whatever it may be, right? But if I am reacting, I'm like, how could you say that? Who are you? Right. So there's more anger, there's the tone, and it's going to be more destructive. So
And
yeah,
and extremely aggressive.
aggressive.
And I think that's a really good point too, because I think that we also, going back to how being angry is healthy,
Yeah.
even finding a safe space to dump that aggression, meaning like I had a situation happen and I asked a friend, I was really frustrated, goes back to the mom chats again, and I was upset. And the way I dealt with it is I texted my friend and I said, can I just be angry for about 2 hours? So she's like, go right ahead. So I dumped that emotion out and we laughed about it. And the next day I was like, okay, new eyes, fresh look. Is this something I need to talk about or not talk about? Where was it at? Where was my primary emotions? And I found out that my thing was I want everybody to like me. So the real trigger had nothing to, even though the person might have been aggressive and shouldn't have said what they said, my trigger had nothing to do with the other person. It was that Kara wants everyone to like her, and I was like, ooh, okay, I'm gonna let this one go and not say anything.
Yeah.
So I think it's okay also to tell people, find a safe space, whether it's writing in a journal, whether it's a bestie that you can dump stuff on. Say all those things if you have to. Just don't say them to the wrong person.
Right.
Right?
Right.
That's going to hurt you
Yeah.
or a professional. You can vent to a professional. But just knowing where to place it, right? Sometimes it makes us feel so much better because
I love that, Kara. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah.
I do too.
Yeah. But I think it's really nice what you brought up though, Carrie, because like when we do that reflection, or what I really like that you did is you asked for permission with your friend and you did the emotional dump. Beautiful. I think people are really more there for us when we let them know what we're needing
Yes.
that moment, right? But to be able to discover what that was really about for you. And that's key when, like with our anger, it's just exploring and discovering what is this really about for me. And guess what happened when you come to that conclusion is now you're in control of that.
I had a thing the other day where someone had asked, I thought they were asking for my advice. And then I did it. And then they're like, I can't talk right now. I'm upset. And I was like, wait a minute, what did I do wrong? I asked another friend, I was like, and she goes, oh, you know what? This happened to me. I think she just wanted you to listen, but she doesn't know how to say that.
Exactly. Yep.
Right? And I
Yep.
was like, oh my gosh, you are so right.
Yeah.
She
Yeah.
wanted me to listen, but she didn't say that because we don't say that sometimes. We sometimes also don't say, can you just listen?
Right.
Like you're saying. And that can give it, and also looking out for the people. So I changed my tone. I wrote back. I was like, that's terrible. I can't believe that's happening to you. And she's like, oh, I love you so much. Right?
Validate. It's
It was
really
that
heard.
simple. And by the way, 90% of the stuff we're talking about,
Mhm.
people don't have malice intentions.
Not at all. And I like looking into like when people are coming in for anger management, for example, like I already know like we're all going to have our bad moments or days that we were so stressed, have so many stressors going on. We're not as capable of handling it in our regular way. So it's really just having patience with one another and just being kind to ourselves of, listen, I can only handle so much, right?
Mhm.
Or I can only handle so much properly. So we're all going to have
Yeah.
those moments and, just be kind to yourself with it.
Forgive
Yep.
yourself, forgive others,
Mhm.
right? It
Yep.
doesn't mean you have to let not have boundaries.
Right.
Right.
But just to
Right.
really embrace that word forgiveness. And when we do it in that framework, the word angry is not so scary,
I love it.
right? And I think that's what it's about.
Kara, I
Yeah.
love it. Yep.
Well, I love you, Anita. Thank you so much. I mean, this has been so great. And thank you for taking the time to talk about it. So we hope to have you back because there's so much more to talk about.
Yes.
Yes,
Guys,
please.
just let me know.
Yes.
For sure. And angry is not a bad
Not
word.
at all. Not at all. Only getting upset.
Well, thank you so much, Anita. It's been so wonderful, and I mean, just thank you. Thank you for
having
letting
me.
us talk
And
about
I
this.
appreciate
Yeah.
like having a podcast episode on anger too. It's wonderful.
See, guys, anger is wonderful. We're gonna make that a quote on a T-shirt. Anger is wonderful.
There you have it.
Thank you, Anita.
We're going to have stuff up on our website, some resources that Anita has shared and more about what she does. And if anyone out there is interested in her training program, it is truly amazing. Even if you don't want to facilitate, it's something that I think everybody should go through because it teaches you so much about how to handle your own emotion of anger as well as others, and then what to do and how to just be a better human in society.
Mhm. I love
Thank
that.
you.
Okay, what'd you think, guys? I thought it was
That
good.
was so informative, and it was really nice to hear that anger is an emotion,
Mhm.
and it should be something that we need to talk about, we need to deal with, and it shouldn't be a stigmatized bad word per
Yeah.
se.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I like that we have permission to feel it and that,
Yes.
Not act on it, but to feel it.
yep, the actions. I like that it's okay to feel it. And for me as a mom, I think it's really important for me to have heard this today because it's just going to help me be a better parent, more empathetic to my kids who don't have a fully developed prefrontal cortex yet,
Right.
and be able to help them deal with, their anger or their frustration.
I know that we give each other permission to be raw about things. So Jenny, I'm curious for you because I know that you tell Molly and I both that you get frustrated. Certain things trigger you in frustration. You're not like an aggressive person. I don't want anyone with Jenny's like, no, but you openly will say like that really ticks me off, or I'm, what I mean, this really upsets me. That trigger of feeling, that burning aggression inside. And what I loved about this whole conversation, there's no self-blame. It's just that people communicate differently,
Right.
especially generational. So if
Yes.
you're dealing with somebody younger, right? If you're
Yes.
dealing with somebody who we're the generation of a lot of words, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right. We're a generation of using a lot of words and explaining things, and life is getting less words and faster. So somebody else might not hear it the same way. And I thought that was great. And what I loved was the mantra of expectation. Like I have this expectation that I'm going to walk into a meeting and it's going to go this way. I have an expectation that I'm going to walk into work and it's going to go this way. I have an expectation that my employee is going to receive this a certain way. And if we just say out loud, right, my expectation might not be met because this person is going to receive it differently, and that's okay. It already changes everything on how you
Right.
communicate and,
Right.
and whether you get angry or not, right?
Absolutely.
Well, and I think for me, I now feel like it's okay to be angry.
Yep.
Because I think a lot of times I will get frustrated, I will get angry, and I don't communicate it
Mm-hmm.
maybe the way I should. I tend to hold it in, or I'll cry,
Right.
or I'll express it in different ways. So for me, it was really a good lesson to hear. It's okay to be angry. It may not be okay to be aggressive towards somebody, but
Right.
it's okay to be angry with something or somebody. And you just have to learn how to manage that anger.
And identify what the root cause was, what the primary,
What the trigger is.
yeah, what
Right.
the primary emotion is, what the primary feeling you're having is.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Oh my goodness, how much time is wasted in aggression?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Way too much.
Way too much
too
time
much.
is wasted on aggression and us being frustrated. And when you look at all that precious time in a day, it's like
Right.
just taking the 35 seconds to I said 35 because I think it's more than 30, but to literally take that time and just go, wait a minute, what am I feeling? Do I need to deal with this right now, or should I pin it
Right.
until I understand it? Right.
Mhm.
I think it was really great. So, I mean, we could talk about anger all day.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Well, if you find yourself angry, no, we're kidding. If you found this
Don't get
episode-
angry.
Don't get angry. If you would like to explore the word angry more, or just get all the tips and tricks that we were talking about with Anita, go to our website at ohgross.com. We will have all the resource links there, as well as more information on how to embrace anger.
And while you're scrolling, be sure to follow us on social media at It's Oh Gross, because we're going to post clips, more great information from Anita.
And don't worry, if you did not take any notes during this episode, you can go ahead and make sure that you are following us where you get your favorite podcast. You can rewind the episode, you can listen to all the episodes, and always make sure that you are following Oh Gross.
Oh, gross. That drama's about to end, 'cause gross. Stop asking for a friend. Taboos. Icky's what we do. Psoriasis, podiatrist, and pinworms too. It's so gross. No need for strife, because gross. Life is part of life. It's just science. Yeah, it's not so weird. We got the facts, nothing to fear. Oh, gross. It's just science, no, it's not weird. It's just science, nothing to fear. It's just science, so wipe those tears. It's boogers and rash and that sticky scratch.